Welcome to the channel. Today on the Kookz channel, we're going to show you how we took this ugly cargo van and turned it into this luxury apartment on wheels. We've built multiple van conversions in the past out of my dad's garage, and this time we really wanted to step it up and take the opportunity to work with Ethan Noto at N Studios in Auburn, California.
And we wanted to design and build a van that has a much more open space and is more livable. I mean, as you can see, we're on this large couch. We got plenty of counter space in here. We've lived in multiple vans, so this one we've designed like perfectly, very comfortable. In some of our past builds, they've just been like a bed and then, you know, raised beds, not that much seating space. So we wanted to
a gear hauler.
Yeah, it was more of an adventure rig, and we wanted to make this more of like a home. So we thought, being here at Ethan's shop, we would be able to do this project in about a month and a half, but that didn't really work out. If you've done a van conversion, you know that the timeline is gonna always be stretched out. It seems like the project really never ended, but it took us a lot longer because we did run into some problems with the van that we had to solve, and then we had to take it to a few mechanics to get it 100%. And once the van was ready to go mechanically, we could start on the build, but that did set us back a bit. So when you're looking at vans, make sure to do the due diligence, because you don't want your project to be stalled at all because you're working on mechanical issues. We have tons of information available on our website. If you're trying to do a van conversion, I highly recommend you check it out. It's vankooks.com.
We're going to show you how to take your cargo van step by step into a home. The first step in starting your van life is have a van or a vehicle that you can build out. In choosing what vehicle you'll be living in, there's a lot of things to take into account, like what's your budget, how tall are you, do you need to be able to stand up in your vehicle, are you going to be part-time or full-time, do you need to bring bikes, surfboards, do you need it to be diesel, gas? So this is the point where you research a lot and try and find the perfect vehicle for you within your budget, within your restraints that you decide that you need to make everyday life comfortable. So we went with the T1N Sprinter when we saw that it was within our price range, and with very low miles for a diesel vehicle. They're 5-cylinder, they're very good on gas, they're reliable, they're versatile, they'll fit in one parking spot, the short ones will. This one was a dually, so it's really, a lot of the taller vehicles kind of rock side to side. This one is really stable, you can hug the corners. Besides the fact that it's a little too short for Kevin to stand up fully in, he's a little like this, it fit all of our criteria, so we jumped on this T1N Sprinter and we're going to start building it out.
So once you've got your fan, you've set the manifestation powers into motion, and it's time to get in it and start creating. Obviously, you're going to want to get in there and rip all the stuff out that you don't want. So there could be shelving, there could be partitions, really nasty floors. It's going to vary depending on your build. So remember, when you're looking at the van, that you are going to have to take everything out. So keep that into account. Next, we like to paint the vans to give them a nice look and also kind of just address some of the body work that needed to be done. So we went with a Raptor liner paint. It gives the van a really nice look. It doesn't look like a cargo van as much after you paint it. And this process takes maybe 2 or 3 days. It's really just sanding, masking, and then you got to paint it, and then it's got to dry, and then you got to take everything off. So the prep work is what takes the longest. You could probably get it done in 2 days, I would say, with drying and everything finished. You're going to want to paint anything inside that's scratched or dented or doesn't look nice that could show when you're done, because some of these vans, they get pretty beat up inside, and if you have all this nice interior finishing and then your interior van is all scratched and scuffed up, it's gonna look funny. So I just use spray paint and a clear coat, and it makes it look brand new.
You're going to move on to planning your layout, and this takes a lot of research, looking at van tours online, and one of the most crucial things that I think before moving forward in starting your layout, once you have everything empty, is make sure you have like your components and your appliances and stuff. You're going to want to have your fridge so you can build around that. You're going to want to have your toilet if you have a toilet, because you're going to want to build around that. You're going to maybe want to know how big your bed is going to be. What we like to do is we like to duct tape a lot of like our areas off on our raw floor, and just kind of tape around some of our appliances, see where they'll be situated. And when planning your layout, if it involves bringing big items like surfboards, bikes, crash mats, anything that you want to bring that's pretty big, you need to get that in the van when you're planning your layout so that you can plan for it. Some other things that you're going to want to keep in mind when planning your layout is to have some weight distribution. So you're going to want to plan to have your batteries on the opposite side of your water. You're going to want to have your sink, because sometimes if you do the depth of the cabinet first and then trying to find a small sink, that's kind of hard to do. So if you have all your things to build around, you have more to work with. If you're going to want to have shore power, because you want to sometimes charge up your batteries from a campsite or something that has power, you're going to want to do 120, like maybe coming out of the van, or just plan for those type of things. If you're going to want your water coming from the outside of the van, you're going to have to cut holes then. And that's going to segue into step 4, which is once you have your layout, you're going to know where you have your windows planned, if you want windows, or where your fans are going to be planned. This is probably the most intimidating section of the build, because it's really when you get in and you start breaking ground and you make some holes in your van. And a lot of people get the sweats and everything about it, but you get the right jigsaw, you get the right blade, and you measure 500 times. We always do, because it's scary. You're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be so much of an accomplishment that you can conquer anything after you put a hole in your van successfully.
So your next step in the process is going to be wiring, and this kind of sets it off nice because you'll have your roof fan installed and it'll have the cords hanging. So this is the first set of wires I like to start with. I'll run my roof fan wiring into where my distribution panel will be, and you're gonna need to decide where your fuse box will be, because you're gonna break off all around the van to different accessories from that fuse box. So you need to decide and spend a lot of time on that layout where you're going to have upper cabinet lights. Like, how are you going to turn the lights on? Where is your switch going to be? It makes it a lot easier if you wire for all the switches and everything now. It's going to be hard to go back and make it look clean and get everything back to your fuse panel. So you're going to have to put a lot of time in this step. You're going to work on your battery bank. You're going to wire all your batteries together. We do power inverters. It's a little bit easier than setting up a 120 outlet. So where's your power inverter going to be? Where's your battery bank? This should all be decided in your layout, and then when you come to wire, it should be very straightforward. You should just get your wires, run them from point A to point B, and if you're going to do a switch, you might as well wire for the switch. I like to leave lots of room in case I mess up, so I can just clip it out. It's easier to clip some off than add the wire. But yeah, wiring the van is done easiest when the van is empty. You also need to cut out a hole for your wires to come down from the solar panel down into your charge controller. So while we're here on this subject, it also is nice now to get your solar panels up on the roof. There's tons of ways to do this. We have a really good video for an under $200 solar panel rack for your van roof. What we did on this van is, since we don't have roof rails or any of that, we just used the very strong VHB 3M tape and stuck them down, and we've gone fast in this van, and it hasn't flown off yet. I would recommend getting your solar panel on the roof at this stage and drill those holes and run the wiring down to where your charge controller will be, and then you'll have all the electrical ready to go. So then when you're ready, you're literally just plugging wires in. It's going to be like a multi-step process. You'll probably start wiring your electronics, building your battery bank, and then kind of adding things later, but you're going to want to do the bulk of the wiring when the van's empty, and you're going to want to have everything planned out. So take extra time on the layout. Make sure it's perfect.
So once you have all of your wiring installed, you're going to move on to insulation. And this is one of the most controversial topics in van life. Everyone has an opinion. There are plenty of different ways to get to the same conclusion of keeping your van pretty temperate in here. What we decided to go with was Thinsulate because it is, to us, we've done foam board and other things, but Thinsulate is what we keep coming back to. It's easy, it's cut and paste, it's mold resistant, it's non-toxic, and we've lived in a van for over 3 years with Thinsulate in it, and we have absolutely no complaints. So this is what we're going with again. And what we do to achieve a thermal barrier with our insulation and a vapor barrier is we use Reflectix. And we put this all up inside the van. We made it look like a spaceship in here. And basically, to keep your thermal barrier, you need to have an air gap for this to actually work correctly. And the way that we achieve that is we had our framing go on top of the Reflectix. And that creates just enough of an air gap that you need to keep your thermal barrier.
So after you insulate your walls, you get your vapor and thermal barrier with the Reflectix going, you're going to want to just start framing out the van so we can get cabinets and interior walls connected to the van. This is a question we get a lot. How do you put walls on the van? Well, we do it with the furring strips. They're 1 inch by 2 inch furring strips. You can get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, any lumber store. And we just kind of work from one side to the other, and we put the wood onto the existing ribs of the van. Another frequently asked question is, how do you get your furring strips onto the van without sending a screw through the side of the van? And how we do that is the van has a structural rib system throughout it, and each rib has a cavity inside, so it doesn't just lay flat. So you can get a screw into that cavity the right size, and it won't go all the way through the van out the side and looking like a Kookz. On the ceiling, there's a bunch of ribs. We'll frame each one of the ceilings with slats, and then we go along the wall. So an important thing here is when you're framing this all out, you need to keep in mind how and where you want to attach your upper cabinets. So we have ours attached here, so we ran the furring strips the whole length underneath and all the way across the top. So when we put our cabinets in, there's multiple anchor points. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're putting on these 4x8 sheets, you need to, when you're framing, you need to lay down framing in between the areas that are going to be the walls. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to put your wall on properly. You need some more anchor points. Same goes with the cabinets. So, you know, we ran our framing straight down, exactly how the cabinet is, and across. And then when we built the cabinet frames, we accounted for where the wall framing is, and we just attached it directly to the wall. This is important, so when you're framing, you may have to draw a diagram. We recommend drawing almost everything at every step. So once you've framed out each side of the van, you're going to do your ceiling. So we got tongue and groove pine. We stained individually each one. And then when you're putting all this in, just take account for your puck lighting. If you do use puck lighting, where it's going to go. You're then ready to attach your interior walls. So it's a pretty straightforward process. We use liquid nail and a pin nailer, and we just push it up against it, nail it at each support. Once the ceiling's in and you have your walls in, you're going to start feeling good. And now it's time to start building out these cabinets.
Now that you got your van all prepped and everything's framed out and ready for you to start building, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start with your biggest item, and that's usually your bed. So we started with our bed first, and we knew that we wanted to have a bed that looked out the window, turned into a couch, and also stored things underneath it. After experiencing a rock and roll bed when we were living in the VW van that we built out, we wanted to have that again because it was so easy to turn it into a couch and be in couch mode and entertaining mode. It's really important to build your largest item first, whether it's building around your bikes. We did that in our last van. You need to have your bikes and then build on top of that, know how big those are. We needed to know how big our bed was going to be in day mode and in bed mode. So we built this first, and it took some time figuring out how to make it rock back and forth correctly. A couple re-welds, just basically fabricating. It's working through the kinks and trying to make something that didn't really exist before you started.
So once you got your largest piece of furniture in the van and it's working to your liking, next we're going to move on to more designing and fabricating. It's going to be your cabinets. Some people doing what we did here was we kind of used masking tape and taped out our layout, and like we had our fridge on the ground so we knew how big each individual item needed to be. And one important thing I would note on the van is you're going to always want to measure from the bottom of the van to the base of the countertop or cabinet or whatever you're building, and the top, because these vans, they curve and it's going to be different from bottom to top. We had some issues on just some of these countertops where we didn't take in account to the slant even at the lower part of the van, and they didn't fit properly. We had to tweak them to get them to work perfect. So that's something to take into account. Also, you're going to just want to draw out everything you're doing. It's going to help you so much. One more thing to take into account is each piece is going to be a multi-use piece of furniture. It's not just an ordinary cabinet. So like for instance, this countertop, it does so much more than a normal countertop. It actually has a refrigerator in it. So when you're designing all this, you need to kind of know where and how all your accessories are going to either slide out or whatever they do. You're going to have to plan for it. So this takes a lot of time. This is probably one of the longer steps, but take that extra time, get it perfect, and you'll be really happy with your outcome.
So once you got all your lower cabinets framed out around all of your appliances and making sure that you're accounting for each one of their sizes and making sure that they'll fit in there, then you're going to want to move on to your upper cabinets. And with your upper cabinets, what we wanted to do was we wanted to make it a really simple design where it was just like an L with anchor points on the top and on the bottom. And we had to be very mindful of where our anchor points were going to be in crossing a furring strip so that we could attach it on both ends, the bottom and the top. So that's just something to keep in mind when you are framing out for your upper cabinets, is to always have an amazing anchor point, because this thing's going to be bumping around and you're going to want to make sure it's really secure in there. Once we got everything framed out, it basically looked like a jungle gym in here. We painted everything, made it black so that there wasn't any rust that could possibly happen. So the next step that we needed to do is we need to hide that framing with some wood paneling. If you really dig in and put in the work here, you're going to get really seamless edges and you're going to really be proud of yourself. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to start with some ram board, which is just kind of like cardboard for construction. And basically, you're going to want to put that ram board up on your frame and start scribing and making a template. So you're going to want to scribe, because it's a van and it rounds, you're going to want to scribe those rounded edges with your ram board. And sometimes your ram board is going to be a little bit too long for your framing, and that's perfect. You just want to scribe in there, push it up, and then get your line, your straight line from the front with your framing. And then you're going to want to take that template and you're going to want to put it onto, once you got it perfect, you're going to want to put it onto your ply. You're going to take your traced template and you're going to want to cut out that section on the table saw, and then usually you'll have to take it to the bandsaw, take it over there, get it as close to the line as possible, and but don't take the line off, leave the line. And then what we did is we took that and we sanded it down perfect to the line on a belt sander so that we could get this edge just seamless there. There's a side to every cabinet that you need to be scribing. So get your scribing pants on. That's a thing. So after you've scribed all of your sides, what you're going to want to do to really finish this off, and we find it to be a crucial step to make your van look really finished, is having a face frame. We didn't do this in our last van, and after seeing this, we totally regret it. So what the face frame does is finish it off, and what you're going to want to do for the face frame is like measure all of your frames. Again, draw it out so that you know how much material you're going to need to buy for your face frames. We made it out of hardwood, so take your measurements, get your hardwood, start making your cuts, start making your jigs, and put your face frames together based on your drawings. Once you have your face frames in, this is a perfect time to get your countertops installed. What you're going to want to do is make a template for your countertop so you know how you need to cut it so it'll fit perfectly in that space. So this is a good time to install your countertop while you have no door fronts, because it's going to make your life so much easier so that you can get up and underneath there and attach that countertop securely to your frame. And also at this time, if you're not going to do any tile work, or if you are going to do tile work, do it here. And then what you'll want to do is install your sink basin and your faucet. Sometimes with the faucet, we like to put all the components together so that we don't have to do it in that tiny space. Now it's time to work on drawers. And since we're here at N Studios and he has all the tools you could ever need, we're definitely gonna do the drawers right this time. We've made our drawers out of pre-finished Baltic birch, and the results look amazing. If you want an in-depth video on how to make drawers, we have one of those on our playlist.
Okay, so we're going to move on to plumbing. This is going to be pretty quick. Basically, you're just going to decide what kind of tanks you want, how you want your tanks to be. So we have a 6-gallon gray water tank. It just pulls out from under there so we can dump it out. That makes it very easy. We have a 25-gallon freshwater tank under the couch, and it's all pretty straightforward. From the couch, under the couch, it runs through a shear flow pump, and it just pumps it up to the sink. You need to power your sink pump, so you got a wire for that, and then there you go.
So the next thing you're going to want to do after your face frames is move on to your cabinet doors. And honestly, a lot of people do it this way. What we did is we wanted it to have a really nice finished look. So we sent it to some professionals over at Caldor. We measured out 3/4 inches between every door so that it was consistent everywhere. And we sent out our orders, had about 20 doors, and they sent them back within a couple weeks. Then all we had to do was wait, stain, and install. And it really worked wonders once we got those doors in here. It made the van just look like it was almost done. Getting to the last step, when your van has all its cabinet fronts on and it's looking about 100%, but it's really 80, what we like to do is do our wallpaper at this time. You sew most of your stuff for your couch or whatever you need. You put your doorknobs on, you put your catchments on. You make sure that all this is secure so that when you're driving, you don't have to worry about stuff flying while you're taking a turn around a corner. So these finishing touches can take a lot of time, so be patient with it. You've done all this work up to this point. Don't try and make any shortcuts at this point, because you'll see them. It's your finishing touch. It's what your eye will gravitate to. So just make sure you take your time. Don't get frustrated. You're almost there, and you'll be so happy that you took the time to really put the silver lining on all of your work that you've culminated up to this point.
Thanks for watching. We hope this was helpful to everyone. After our last time-lapse video of the whole process, people asked for a narrated, step-by-step, easier to follow video. We hope that this whole process becomes easier. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe.
And if you guys like content like this, we do have a whole playlist that breaks down every single step. That if you want to build your own van, we hope us Kookz give you Kookz the courage to get out there. And if you know someone that this video would benefit, go ahead and share it with them. And we'll see you next time, you Kookz. See ya.